You've spent your whole life surrounded by people, by responsibilities, by obligations, by voices that told you who to be, what to think, how to behave. But after 70, something shifts. There's a silence that creeps in. And for many, that silence feels like loneliness. But what if I told you that silence isn't loneliness at all? What if it's freedom? What if everything you've been chasing in others, validation, comfort, identity, was never what you needed in the first place? People fear getting older because they think it means being alone. They think it means being forgotten. But here's the truth. The further you travel into the later stages of life, the more you realize that companionship is not about quantity. It's about alignment. And in many cases, solitude, not company, is the pathway to peace. You don't need a crowd to feel complete. In fact, sometimes the crowd keeps you from ever truly knowing who you are. I've spoken to countless people in their 70s, 80s, even 90s. I've sat across from men and women who've buried spouses, lost siblings, outlived friends, and yes, some mourn deeply. But many paradoxically find themselves more alive, more awake, more fulfilled than they've ever been. Why? Because they finally stopped looking outward. They stopped waiting for others to complete them. And they embraced the radical responsibility of standing alone. And in doing so, discovered a version of themselves they never knew existed. When you're younger, friendship is tethered to utility, to activity. You're surrounded by people at work, at school, in your neighborhood. There's a momentum to life and friends just happen along the way. But after 70, the gears shift. People move away, they pass on, they become entrenched in their own families and routines. And if you're not prepared, that shift can feel like abandonment. But here's the thing, it's not abandonment. That's the evolution. Think about it. In the earlier years of life, your identity is a patchwork quilt made of other people's opinions. Your value is measured by how many friends you have, how active your social life is, how accepted you are. But those are juvenile metrics, shallow measures of worth. In old age, you have the opportunity finally to define yourself, not by who you keep around, but by who you are when no one is watching. Now, I know that sounds romantic, but it's not easy because we've been trained, conditioned to believe that being alone is failure, that not having friends means something's wrong with you. That's nonsense. It's actually a sign of psychological maturity to not need others to prop you up emotionally every single day. It's a sign that your internal structure is solid, that you've built a soul capable of weathering storms without clinging desperately to someone else's coat for shelter. One man I met, a retired professor, sharp as a whip at 84, told me that after his wife passed, he stopped going to social clubs. People thought he was depressed, but he wasn't. He said, I realized I spent so many years filling my time with others that I never once sat still with myself, and now I have. And it's astonishing how much there was to discover. He had taken up painting, journaling, reading obscure philosophy, not because he wanted to impress anyone, but because he finally had the space, internally and externally, to explore what truly resonated with him. That's not loneliness, that's liberation. So many people chase friendship out of fear of being forgotten, fear of insignificance. But what if your life was never meant to be a popularity contest? What if the real work of your final decades isn't about collecting more people, but shedding the layers of false identity they help create? You see, old age isn't a tragedy. It's a reckoning. It's where the masks come off, whether you like it or not. The roles fade. You're no longer the provider, the mother, the boss, the social butterfly. You are stripped down. Just you. And that moment, as terrifying as it may seem, is the birthplace of authenticity. And let's be honest, not all friendships are good for you. Some are built on habit, not heart, on guilt, not growth, on fear of being alone, not mutual respect. And when you finally reach the age where you no longer need to play those roles, you have the right to let go. You don't have to answer every call. You don't have to go to lunch with people who drain you. You don't owe anyone your time just because you've known them since 1975. It's okay to choose peace over noise, depth over activity, self-reflection over small talk. You've earned that. And let's talk honestly here. Your time is more limited than it's ever been. Every moment matters. So why spend your precious remaining hours in shallow conversations with people who don't see you, don't know you, don't respect you? Why pretend to laugh at jokes you've heard 100 times when there are books you've never read, thoughts you've never thought, places you've never dared to go within yourself? Independence after 70 is not isolation. It's sovereignty. It's standing on the summit of your life and seeing clearly for the first time, no longer bogged down by the need, please, to entertain, to conform. It's the chance to meet yourself, perhaps for the first time. There's a strange thing that happens when you stop needing others. You start attracting people who are actually worth your time. You stop engaging in social rituals out of obligation. And suddenly, the rare interactions you do have, they're richer, more meaningful. There's depth, there's honesty, there's no pretense. Because you're not playing a game anymore. You're not afraid of being alone, so you're not settling for shallow company. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have friends. I'm saying you don't need them to be whole. There's a difference. One comes from strength, the other from desperation. And if you approach your final years from a place of strength, of grounded independence, you'll find that the relationships that remain or emerge are chosen, not needed, wanted, not clung to. I remember watching my own father in his late 70s make peace with solitude. He had friends, but he no longer pursued them frantically. No more chasing calls that weren't returned. No more filling every afternoon with coffee dates. He sat by the lake. He walked. He listened to the birds. He read scripture. He wept sometimes, but he also smiled more deeply than I'd seen in years because he wasn't chasing any. He was being. And perhaps that's the ultimate destination of a life well lived. To move from doing to being, from pleasing others to understanding yourself, from filling your calendar to emptying your soul of everything false and seeing what remains. So if you're over 70 and finding your circle getting smaller, don't panic. It's not a failure. It's an invitation to depth, to clarity, to self-possession. It's a sacred opportunity to come home to yourself. You've spent decades in service to your family, your career, your community. Now is the time to serve your soul, to rediscover your voice without the background noise of the crowd, to build a relationship with yourself so solid, so honest that you no longer fear being alone, because you are, in fact, profoundly not alone when you are at peace within. And if you're feeling that fear creeping in, that old echo of you should be more social or something's wrong with me because I don't have many friends, question it. Where did that belief come from? Who taught you that silence was a problem, that solitude was a sickness? Because I'll tell you something, it's not. It's a skill, a strength, a sacred space in which the final and perhaps most important stage of your life unfolds. Now, if this message resonates with you, don't just nod along, act. Sit with yourself today. Turn off the TV, put down the phone, spend an hour alone, not lonely, alone. Journal, pray, walk, create. Get to know the person you've always been underneath all the noise. Because if you can learn to embrace independence now, not as a punishment, but as a privilege, you will step into the most powerful, peaceful, and profound chapter of your life, not because of who's around you, but because of who you've become. And if you found value in this message, if it helped shift something in you, share it, not for me, but for someone else out there who's afraid that being alone means being broken. Let them know it doesn't. It might just mean you're finally waking up.
So don't fear the quiet, walk into it. And in that stillness, you'll find not emptiness, but everything you were always meant to be.